available. So Matthias, if you want to hit record, if you haven't already. So, and I see we have some folks from VDOT and looks like some folks from our central office. So I do encourage you, if there are any questions about your program area or planning in your district, please join, participate, and give your input. So as far as what we're going over today, we have a lot to cover, a lot of people on the line, not a lot of time. So, you know, I encourage people to unmute, but we don't want to get too far off track. We want to make sure we get through everything. So Matthias is going to be monitoring the chat. If so, you know, if you want to put your questions in there, but we will have breaks in the presentations, you know, where you can unmute and ask questions. So just keep in mind, we don't have a lot of time here. For those of you not familiar with Pathways for Planning, we have several modules that we've built to address business processes for VDOT's planning division. But today, we're only going to be going over two of them. Our View module, which is where we have all this great GIS data. So I want to make sure, I think it's very important that people know where this data is, how to get to it, you know, what's available, and then the tools we have in Pathways for Planning for visualizing, querying, and exporting that data. But given where we are with the project pipeline and the fast approaching Smart Scale, we're really going to focus on our studies module. So I'm going to be showing you how to, this is a place where users can manage and create their studies, their transportation planning studies and recommended improvements. So I'm going to be showing you how to create those studies and recommendations. Also our mapping tools for capturing the locations of the project study areas and those recommendation locations, entering cost and the ability to select eligible funding programs that your project might qualify for. And then we have, probably this is most important, the tools to advance these improvements to the SMART portal. So the information you're putting into Pathways for Planning, we have the ability to move that information over into the pre-scoping application, which is what Sarah is going to be going over in more detail when we get there. So just a little bit of overview. Pathways for Planning is a permission-based application, and it was built by VDOT's Planning Division with partnership with the University of Virginia Systems Engineering Department. And we were really looking to address several business challenges, but first and foremost, data sharing. It's been said many times, VDOT is data-rich, information-poor. Nothing could be more true. We have so much wonderful data out there, but even if you work at VDOT, it can be very hard to find what you're looking for or know if you're looking at the right version. So Pathways for Planning, we're not necessarily the authoritative source for the data, but we're going out and finding updates and getting the data in here so we can have it in one place and that we can share that data not only internally, but with our external business partners. So you all, the localities, the PDCs, the MPOs, you know, the people that we work with. So we also wanted an easy to use platform, you know, where you don't need to have a degree in ESRI or be a GIS analyst to ask questions of the GIS data to get quick answers. And then also a place to manage our planning studies, being able to query the information easily from the planning studies, recommendations, and being able to visualize it in a map view, I think you'll see is very, very valuable. So does anyone have any questions so far? I am going to share my next screen. Okay, Matthias, can you see Pathways for Planning?
I can indeed.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be a live demo, but I have confidence in our application that we built here today. It's very stable. If you haven't already set up your account or gone to Pathways for Planning, you get to the landing page. You go to v.p4p.com. Chrome is your preferred browser, although you can see I'm using Firefox. It works well too. If you don't have an account, please click the Contact Us button in the top right-hand corner. Put in your information with the subject Request Access, and once it's approved, you'll receive an email to set up your login credentials. If you think you already have an account, please use the Forgot Password button. Your username is your email address. That will make your login. That will be instantaneous. You won't have to wait for anyone to approve, so you can log in. But once you have everything set up, you can log in. It's going to take you to that view module. This is where we have all that great GIS data I was talking about. But just to emphasize, Pathways for Planning is not necessarily the authoritative source for this data. We are working with the data owners, going out to the sources, and actually Matthias is the one doing this, and he does an amazing job every month going through all our data and making sure he finds the updates and gets them into Pathways for Planning through our monthly releases. So when you open Pathways for Planning, you're going to see this splash screen. And I know myself included, nobody looks at these, but just want to let you know that this is going to have information about our most recent release. So you're going to see what data has been updated, added, or any functional enhancements that have been pushed out that month. I'm going to go ahead and close that. In the map view, so once you close, it defaults us to the Esri Street Space Map. But up in the top right-hand corner, you have a base maps button right under the logout button. And that gives you several other choices, including topography, imagery, aerial imagery. So you have a lot of choices here. So just want to let you know those are there. I'm going to stick with the street space map though, because it shows data a little bit better during presentations. So, but as far as navigating, it's very easy. We have a mouse wheel navigation, zoom in, zoom out. We have a joystick at the top you can use to zoom in by clicking the plus and the minus button. You can drag to pan, so clicking your map and just drag around and pan that way. We also have a locate tool in the top. So this has predefined boundaries that you can zoom in on. So if I want to go to jurisdictions, I select jurisdictions, and if I want to go to Abingdon, once I start typing Abingdon, it's going to auto filter with that. Pull up Abingdon for me. I select it, and then it zooms me to Abingdon with that highlighted in my map. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to the full extent. So now for all the GIS data layers I was talking about. At the bottom left-hand corner, you have an Add Layers button. This will open our layers window, and we have the data. There are over 130 data layers in here. They're broken out into 12 categories. And at this time, the layers are in those categories in alphabetical order. So I'm going to click to select just a few of them. Bring them in here. Go down, get my VTrans data, safety. See, we have our table planning data, people like that. We have our smart scale projects. I'm going to grab all of those as well. So once you have everything selected that you want to bring over, click Add Layers, and they're going to populate my layers legend on the left-hand side. And you can see this is a lot of data. I included these points. Most of those are crash data. That's probably the biggest data set that we have. And you can see that these features are coming into our map view very quickly. Zoom in a little bit more. So you can use, so in your layers legend, I can scroll through. I can see all the layers that I've added. You have a hide legend, which is going to actually hide the symbology for the layers, so you can see a little bit better of what's going on. So I'll go ahead and hide everything except for, oopsie, sorry about that. Hide everything. And then I'm also I'm gonna go ahead and turn off everything so you can see what's going on better, except my v.lrs routes. And I'm gonna bring that to the top. And I'm gonna turn that off and turn it on. So you can see them come in. And it's a little bit slower. But this layer, I want to start here with this layer because if you don't work for VDOT, you may have no idea what our LRS is. Even if you work for VDOT, you may not know what this is. And I know I had that in one of my slides I've shown already, but it's very important because I'm going to keep talking about it, throughout this whole session today. You're going to keep hearing LRS. So LRS, this is simply a spatial representation of VDOT's road network, just to put it simply. And it includes in it our display of our interstates, U.S. routes, state routes, frontage roads, secondary routes, and urban roads. And if I was zoomed in a little bit more, you can see them. There you go. And the components to this data, to an LRS data, and for data to be referenced to our LRS is that it have three features. It has a route name, a to measure, and a from measure. So that's going to make more sense, I think, as I go through. But I just want to say that. So I'm going to turn on my crash layer. So now I have two layers on: crash layer and LRS routes. Uh-oh. Okay. Can someone
everybody
mute?
Yeah, if everybody can mute their line, that'd be great.
Okay. Please mute. Okay. Like I said, this is not the authoritative source for data. So, but you can click on the layer name, so the crash data. If I want to know more about that crash data, I can click on the layer name, and I can find out when that data was updated, when it was updated in Pathways for Planning, who the data owner is, the source, a description, and probably most importantly is there's field descriptions for all the layers in this quick metadata. If you ever work with GIS data, sometimes the field names are not very intuitive, so this is a good resource. Clicking the layer name, having that metadata come up. There's also a data dictionary in our help document in the top right-hand corner. If you click the question mark, that's going to open a PDF in a new tab, and that's going to allow you to go to a layer to find out more about those field names. I usually do a Control F to get me where I want to go quickly. So next we have in this layer legend, and this is a good feature, an export button. All of the data layers in Pathways for Planning are exportable statewide, and you can export them as a CSV, a file geodatabase, shapefile, or GeoJSON. I do want to recommend, though, if you are a GIS analyst, an Esri user, and you're trying to bring this into ArcMap or ArcPro, you do want to use file geodatabase over shapefile. There's a technical limitation with exporting shapefiles, which does not bring over the field names. So it gives them generic field names. So just keep in mind, if you're trying to bring this into your map document, use File Geodatabase. Click download, and it'll put it in your download file, and then you can bring it into ArcMap. Okay. So now that's about our layers, finding more information, exporting. So now you want to know what these features are in your map. We have Quick Click ID. You can click on any feature, and that's going to bring up the attribute information for that feature. However, oops, what is that? Just keep in mind, this tool works off of the topmost layer in your layers legend. So if I have like PSI points, an LRS route, and a crash point stacked on top of each other, and I click use the quick click ID, it's going to bring back the ID for crash because it is at the top. It's clear as mud, isn't it? Okay, so we have that ability, but if you want to do a more robust identify, so let's say you want to identify everything that you have in your layers legend, or you want to select just more than one, more than the quick click. What you can do, and I'm going to go into locate. I'm going to go over to Fredericksburg. And I want to just look at the smart scale projects that I have in the Fredericksburg area. So I'm going to turn everything off except for smart scale. And you have the option to select your, define your area of interest based on point, line, polygon. So I am going to, let me turn everything off in here. Okay, I'm going to use a polygon, and in my map, click off each click. There we go. Double click to end my polygon, and you can also apply a buffer. You can change the units of your buffer, but I'll just keep that in miles, and click apply to run. And your results, already run this to save time, they're going to display at the bottom of your map. And Matthias, can you see this?
I can.
Okay, so we have, so all the results, you get a summary results over on the left-hand side. Each of the layers that has returned results will have its own tab, and you can toggle through that. In addition to that, you have a statistics at the end tab, and that gives you an overview, and you can control also the layer and the fields if you want to change how you visualize things in that statistics tab. Okay, now we'll go back. Oh boy. I apologize. There's all this stuff in the way from, okay. All right, how to get back in here. Okay, so that's one tool. That's our identify tool. I actually prefer the query builder tool. It works a lot like the identify, but you have more options for defining your area of interest. You can define the area of interest using point, line, polygon, also LRS point, LRS line. And I'm going to go through that with our next tool, show you how those work. In addition to clicking off in your map and drawing a shape, you can add, like we did with the locate tool, a boundary. So recently, Isabella, she's one of the planners in Hampton Roads District, she wanted to bring in the PSI data and the VTrans midterm data for her district so that she could export it and bring it into ArcMap. So she could use this query builder tool to find her district, Hampton Roads, and then add. And I do want to point out, you can have as many boundaries as you want. You can have these select boundaries in addition to drawing a polygon off. As many as you want can be your area of interest. And this tool works a little bit differently than the identify tool. It's not going to grab the layers in your layer legend. So you'll need to add the layers that you're looking to query. Okay, so we want to go to safety and grab that PSI data and then the VTrans, the two VTrans layers, and I will add those here. So when I apply this query, it can run on all 4 of those layers, but the thing you can do with the query builder is you can drill down on the field to the field level. So I click the drop down to expand below the VTrans midterm district needs and click add. And this is going to give me a list of all the fields associated with that VTrans layer. And I'm going to select pedestrian safety improvements since I'm looking at the PSI data. I'm going to say I'm concerned with that. You can change the qualifier, and I'm going to leave it as equal to, and I'm going to select very high. And then click add, and then I'll do that as well for the statewide VTrans layer. We have safety, very high, and then I'll add. So once I apply, just like our identify tool, those results are going to display at the bottom. Each layer with return results will have its own tab. And I want to point out every one of our queries and the identify you can export like we can do with the layers on the statewide level. You can export this as a geo package, a file geodatabase, CSV. We have an export option, which we are going to add to the statewide layer is KML. So if you're a Google Earth user, you can export as KML or shapefile. Yes, but again, file geodatabase preferred if you're using Esri products. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to clear that and just hang in there. We have one more tool, and this one is very, very cool, I think. So our LRS query tool. This is allowing us to query data that we have, and it's going to work off of our data that we have in our layers legend. So I'm going to bring in a few layers because it did not mean to close last time. So I'm going to bring in, so I have my VTrans, I have PSI, I have crash. So, and I want to run an LRS query. And like I said, this LRS data needs to have 3 components. It needs to have a route name and a to from measure. So the 3 of the 5 layers that I have in my layers legend is referenced to our LRS so that you can do this type of query. So let's say I want to look at 64 eastbound. And let me turn off these so you can see a little bit better. Okay. Leave that one on. Okay, so when I select 64 eastbound by typing and selecting it, it's then going to highlight all of 64 eastbound. So from 0 to 300.42. So if I know my mile markers and I just want to look at the Charlottesville area, I can say 118 to 124. And then that's going to zoom me in and define that segment of our LRS so that I can run this query. So when I click apply, it's going to return the results for, and actually my example that I've already run has our table planning data, but just the same way you have your other results, you have them in individual tabs for the layers returned in the result. You also have an SLD tab, which I think is pretty cool. This is the straight line diagram. So across the top, 118 to 124, that's a segment of the LRS that I defined. And you can see the concentrations of the crashes along that segment of our LRS, as well as where you have PSI, table planning data, and you have tools. So if you want to zoom in a little bit more, you can click the zoom in button. You really want to know what's going on in that area where you have that PSI segment. So you can really, this enables us to really pinpoint what's happening on almost an exact location of our route segment. So I think it's very, very powerful. Okay, so that's one way you can do the LRS, but this is very important. I'm going to clear this because this is also, this LRS query pick tool is also going to be part of our studies module. And this is where I sometimes feel like I lose people, but that they don't like it. But I think actually if you start using it, you get used to it. I'm going to click on LRS tool. This is going to bring up my LRS draw tool. So you have the option you can filter, and you can see when you click on and off, you can see those LRS segments kind of showing up in the background. I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see that better. There you go. Okay, so this nearby routes window, it's going to populate based on where I put my cursor. Where I have my little hand, it's going to grab all the LRS segments in an area. So you can see it keeps changing as I keep moving. So if I want to run that same query, I want 64 eastbound. I'm going to wait until I see 64 eastbound. So I'm going to have to kind of know where that is. And then you're going to type the corresponding number. So number 2, we'll select it. So next you're going to use the Z button to drop your to from measures, so your start end point. So I want to get around mile marker 118. So I think that's around here. So you can see my blue dot, that's going to be my start point, and it's going to follow my hand. I'm going to click Z, and that drops my start point. And as I move my hand along that route segment, it's going to start drawing that feature so I can run my query. And once I'm happy, it can see my route name, my from to measure, and my box there. I'm going to click Z again. So this defines that same segment of road, and I click apply, and it will return those same results. So those are we have quick click identify query builder, and LRS queries, all ways to look at this data to find out more information about the data. Let's see, over here, just to finish this out, below our joystick, we have a couple more tools. We have a measure tool, kind of like a comb, where you can click and measure, returns measurements. There we go. There we go. It's a little bit slow. In miles, and they're cumulative. So you can use that tool and click it to remove it. We also have a print button. So if you want to print out anything from Pathways for Planning, you can use that. And below that, we have 2 buttons. I'm not going to open these today because it would be a whole nother training, but all of the data that we have in Pathways for Planning is integrated into spatial analytics and tabular analytics. And these 2 tools will allow you to leverage that data to make presentation quality maps, charts, and graphs. So they're really, really great tools. You can do some very nice graphics with it, 3D modeling, things like that. So just know that those are there if you are looking to do something more advanced as far as your mapping goes. So that pretty much wraps up our view module. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Geraldine, we did get 1 or 2 in the chat. I've got one here from Ron, and Ron, I apologize for fear of butchering your last name. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it. But he asks if the SPS data is going to be in Pathways for Planning.
It is. Run. That is, if you add layers, it is in here already. It's called our table planning data. And I think we have it in Matthias, you probably know this too. It's under route physical characteristics, that group.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, it's right here. I had it here. It's the table planning data. That would be the data from SPS. And this is one of the layers that the planning division tries to share out with localities. There's a lot of good information in that data layer. Okay, Matthias, did you have another question?
I was able to answer the other ones that came up. So those are all for now, unless somebody wants to unmute and ask something else.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Oh.
Sorry, Luke Peters just asked if we could show an example of filtering crash data by year.
Let me pull it back up. Okay, I would use for that, then I would use the query builder tool. And let's do a subsection of it because this is a pretty big query. So I'll do in here. Okay, so using the query builder, this would probably be the best way to do that. So your crash data, define your area of interest and add your crash layer, and then this would allow you to query based on the year. It may be, but if we could, I'll come back to that because that might actually take a long time to run. But we can, and Luke, I could send you instructions if we don't get through this today, where we can come back to that if that's okay. But this is the tool I would use to answer that question. Matthias, anything else?
Just a question by John Miller about adding P4P data that's not present, adding data to P4P that's not present. And I can answer that one, John. We are actively looking at data sets to add to Pathways for Planning to make the platform more robust and to have more information on there that would be available to our planners. So that's a constant process that we're looking at. And then one from Vahid. If you have multiple draw shapes, would they apply with and or logic? Not sure about that one. I'd have to check with our developer. But those are all the questions for now. I do know that,
okay.
Sorry, for one more for DeAndre Johnson. I do know that we do have constructional data that can be filtered. I don't know off the top of my head which data sets those are. I would be happy to look into that for you and send you an email post this meeting. That's all for right now, though. I will post my email in the chat for everybody. Once I do that, though, we will move on to some polling questions to make sure you all are staying engaged. Sorry, that's 1 a.m. Virginia and 2 A's. So Geraldine, if you could give me polling permission. Perfect.
I think I already did.
Yeah, I've got it now. So let me just open the poll. So the first question is about the LRS. So VDOT loves acronyms, but a lot of people find themselves scratching their heads trying to figure out what it stands for. Pathways for Planning refers to the LRS throughout the application. What does it refer to? Or what does the acronym mean? I'll give you about a minute to answer each one of these. Okay, I'm gonna close the poll now. All right, it looks like most of you got the correct answer, which is C, linear referencing system. So we'll move on to the next question. Just give me a second to pull that up. Okay, so the next question is, the LRS represents interstate, primary, secondary, urban roads, and Walmart parking lots throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Is this answer true or false? Rashawn, I just saw your question pop up. The recording of the meeting will be made available to all participants post the meeting.
Matthias?
Yeah.
No, okay. Make sure I didn't lose you.
Yeah. So that's about a minute. So I'm going to close the poll here.
Okay.
Let's see. So the correct answer is false. While it does represent interstate, primary, secondary, and urban roads, it does not represent the Walmart parking lots that are available throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
You two suggesting that it should?
I don't think so.
They're very
I mean, if
very
Walmart wants to
dangerous.
get in touch with us, maybe. Just pulling up our third question here. And okay, so for the third question, what are the 3 data elements that are required to perform an LRS query? Okay, I'm gonna close the poll. So the correct answer for this question is A. You need a root name, a to measure, and a from measure to perform an LRS query. So moving on to our last question for this section. Where would you find field definitions in pathways for planning? Okay, so time's up for that one. The correct answer is D, all of the above. So you can find the field definitions by clicking on the layer name to view the metadata. It's in the table in the metadata pop-up there. You can also find them in the health document. So both A and B are true. So C is true, and therefore D is also true. So the answer would be D. And with that, I think we have a couple more questions pop up. So let me just take a look at those. Let's see, I'll go in the order that they appeared. From Jaspreet, do you have approved signal justification reports on pathways for planning? I believe we do not. Geraldine, can you confirm?
No, we don't have that, but we can look into it.
Mm-hmm. From Rashawn, yes, the meeting will be available. Is there a layer for pipeline studies?
Yes.
Yes, yes, there is. I was
You're
I was just
jumping
struggling to remember
ahead.
it. Yeah.
Yes, we're about to cover that.
Mm-hmm. We do have a park and ride layer from Amir.
Yeah, it's under multimodal when you add layers.
Mm-hmm. And those are all the questions for now. So Geraldine, if you want to keep going with studies, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, I think you might have to give me back control.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
Your screen, yeah.
So let me get to the right slide here. Okay, so now we're going to go into the studies module, and this is what I was saying is a place for planners, for you all users to go in and create and manage your studies and recommended improvements. And I know there are people out there rolling their eyes saying, why VDOT, why are you giving us one more thing to look at, one more thing to do? And I hope by the end of this training, the end of this session, you won't feel that way about this. I feel like these are tools that can really help people, help you visualize and manage what your projects are that you're interested in doing, what areas that you studied, and being able to visualize those things. So I'd like to say that this is a resource, not necessarily a requirement, although the Transportation Mobility Planning Division at VDOT, we are making pathways for planning entry for our new task orders that we're issuing for any studies being done in the planning division. Also, the project pipeline effort, those are also going to be entered into pathways for planning. But it is up to you whether you want to use these tools, up to your office. I'm just here today to tell you what is here and here for you to use if you want. So I hope everybody on this line was able to see Jason Robinson's webinar introducing us to the pre-scoping application. I think he did this a little over a month ago, like the end of November. It was really good, and he was nice enough to let me borrow this slide because I think it shows perfectly how the flow from Pathways for Planning Studies module, the planning to the concept and the pre-scoping application to prioritizing to having application-ready projects. And so I was able to add to this, and Jason likes the analogy of that Pathways for Planning is the grocery store, and with the recommended improvements being, the groceries on the shelf, and that the pre-scoping application is the grocery cart. So what do you want to take off the shelf and put in your cart? And, what do you want to look at and submit and try to get funding for? So taking that back another step, as far as Pathways for Planning goes, along the same lines as that analogy, that our planning types would then be the distributors. So our project pipeline, the STARS, AMP, freight, to include a few, where our studies come from that generate our recommended improvements. In addition to that, projects. So this So I'm going to say project or project ideas that might not necessarily come from a study. So our Salem district, and I saw Carol got on the line, so if Carol wants to jump in on this, they're working heavily with their localities to kind of identify these project ideas, and they are leveraging pathways for planning to manage those project ideas. And this, in pathways for planning, we would call those standalone recommendations. So basically, the elements of the study module are studies, obvious areas that are being studied or have been studied, and then we have recommendations, recommended improvements that come out of a study, or standalone recommended improvements like what our Salem district is working with their localities on. I do want to point out we also have a workflow for candidates. These are potential areas to be studied, and we set this workflow up specifically for the project pipeline. So I'm not going to be going over this today because we're further along in that process. So we're already at the study stage where those project pipeline studies are going to be entered into pathways for planning. So today I'm going to show you studies and recommendations, but I just wanted to make you aware that those candidates are part of that. So as I said in the beginning, Pathways for Planning is a permission-based application, and Studies module has several roles that help us with these workflows. And I hope I might muddy the waters here a lot trying to explain this, but if I can't explain it in this slide, I think when I start showing you how to create a study and recommendation, you'll see how these are fleshed out. But all the users with access to the Studies module can view all the studies and recommendations that have been entered into the system, except for any standalone recommendations. It's only for standalone recommendations can you restrict viewing. So if you have an organization like Roanoke County is working with the Salem district and they want to do this sidewalk project, but they're not ready for the whole Pathways for Planning world to see, their idea for this sidewalk project, they can restrict viewing for that standalone recommendation to just down to the organizational level. So organization would be Roanoke County and the VDOT Salem district. So I'll show you how that works too. So all the users though, so they can view everything unless it's restricted, and they can also create a study which has recommendations, or they can create standalone recommendations. The users that create the study or recommendation will by default be the point of contact. And the point of contact is going to be managing the permissions for that study, for that recommendation. So they'll be able to assign other points of contact as well as editors. And so the point of contact, obviously, they're going to be able to add information, but they'll also be able to download recommended improvements to submit for pre-scoping application, as well as submit candidates. And they assign who they want to be editors, and the editors will be able to add information only. They'll be able to populate fields, add documents, and create features. They won't be able to delete anything, but so the point of contact would have to do that. So clear as mud, I know. All right, let me stop sharing that. And I am going to go back into my application here. I go back to the landing page and log in. It is going to take you to the last module where you were. So when you log into Pathways for Planning, because I was in the View module, it takes me here, and across the top you see View, Studies, Tutorials. this is your module banner. So by default, these are the 3 modules that are going to come up when you open Pathways for Planning. I do want to point out to the right of tutorials is a little gear button. If you click that, it's going to give you the list of modules that you have access to. So I'll click a couple more just to show you what that will look like. So now I've added our edit and our contracts module. But I'm going to click studies, and this is going to open me to my studies table view. And this is all the studies that we have entered into the system so far. It doesn't mean that it's all the studies. These are mostly studies that the Transportation Mobility Planning Division owns. So these are a lot of our STARS and AMP studies are in here. We certainly would like more and more. I think it's better the more we have in here. So you can look at the studies in this table view. And you can filter for the study. You can search for the studies. So if I want to do, let's say I want to find all the STARS studies, I can run a filter for, say, the Northern Virginia district, and I can do it down to, oops, the jurisdiction. So I'll select Fairfax County, and you can even filter based on the user assigned to the study, so the point of contact. So Regina Moore, our planner up in Northern Virginia, and I filtered in her studies where she's the point of contact and for STARS in Fairfax County. So we have 9, and she can export those 9 if she wants. And the same way we export, we can export them as GeoPackage, file geodatabase, CSV, KML, or shapefile. Also, you could export all of them if you wanted to. You can change the layout of your dashboard. So if you don't want to see the status, but you want to see the planning type, you can adjust that by clicking this drop down, 6 columns selected. So we could turn off everything if we wanted to. So that's available. You could also search to type in, maybe she just wants to look at, Regina just wants to see her Route 50 studies. So that can filter down even more. And each record here in our dashboard, you can click on the history, which would be the metadata about that study and Pathways for Planning. If you're a point of contact, you can delete, or you can click View to open, but I'll get to that in just a second. Also, from studies, you can click over to our map view. So this is, to me, this is super cool. Being able to see all of the studies that we have entered into Pathways for Planning in a map view. And then having tools, we have additional tools in here. Let me just zoom into up here where this Route 50 STARS study is in Fairfax County. You have the tools also to, we have a subset of GIS layers from our view module that are specific more to the studies and recommendations. So we've made those available. If you click on that little, I guess, stack of pancakes button at the bottom, that's going to give you your list, which it defaults to studies showing that symbology. If you have candidates, you can look at those candidates as well for the pipeline. But I think everything has been converted to a study that was once a candidate, if that makes sense. So we have that. You can turn on your VTrans data and look at it that way. Another tool we have in here in the map view, you have a open Google Maps. So you can click on that and it's going to open Google Maps and take you to the location that you are in Pathways for Planning. So we're up in Northern Virginia around 7 Corners, and that's where it's taken me in my Google Maps. See if I can close this without shutting everything down. Okay, good. I can. Okay, so And then also from the map view, you can create a study or a candidate. And then I'll go back to the table view. And also there, you can create the study or the candidate. So I'm going to go in here, and now I'm going to show you how to enter a study. So when you click Create, I automatically become that point of contact. So let's say I want to do a safety study, and I'm going to do it in Dillwyn, Virginia. I was just out there. So I become the point of contact, but let's say I also want everybody in the VDOT Lynchburg district to also be points of contact. So I'm gonna select David, add him as a point of contact, and then my editors, maybe I hired the Timmons group to do this safety study for me. So I can select filter by the Timmons group by organization, and I'm gonna add Thomas as an editor. And then I'm gonna start defining entering the field data. And we tried to set this up so that there aren't too many required fields, but you need to have some of them. So we're going to say the Lynchburg district, and we're going to be in Buckingham County. A study, and I'm going to put start date, the planning type I want, and I'm just going to choose general on call. And then I'm going to say this is type of study, I'm going to say corridor. And the purpose, put safety and congestion, congestion and safety. And you have other fields here if you want to give more background about your study. I think of it as when you are looking at one of these study reports as an introduction, that information you'd want to put here at the setup screen of the study. Just to point out, we have the fields at the bottom. These are VDOT Planning Division specific, so if we are doing one of these studies from one of our contracts, we can link the study to our contract, a task order, subtask order, and task request. But probably that would be internal to VDOT, so you probably don't really need to worry about that. But once you have all your information entered, yes?
Two quick
Hello?
questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
One from Amal. Can you apply the table view filter to the map view? This is the table view from the study.
That's a really good question. Not at this time, but we are working on enhancing the whole map view to give more of the functionality that we have in the view module. And that would be one of the things is bringing over those, being able to do more of the queries in that map view for studies. But we don't have it there yet, but that is a good question.
Okay, and then the second one is just asking for a repeat of the major benefits for creating the studies on pathways for planning.
I'm going to say your biggest benefit for creating this is that this data is not going to go away. This is your workplace. So if you are putting data into the SMART portal, you have a project idea or an improvement, and you put it in there, it's going to get wiped out, whether you get approved, don't get approved. But this data you put in Pathways for Planning is going to help you inventory the data. You'll be able to keep track of your documents, your history of it, and it's going to always be here unless you delete it.
Okay. And then lastly, one quick one. Can we view the pipeline studies in the view module?
No, they're not there.
Okay, thank you. We can keep moving on.
Okay. All right, so back to my study, just to finish it out, I click next. You can save this study, but until it's in the draft format, you need it in the draft format to be able to start entering information. So I'm gonna click create draft, and this is, I'll put in my comment. And this comment is going to become part of that history, the metadata about the study. This happy little big pencils, it's a good sign. It will take you back to the table view. Refresh that. Okay, good. Takes you back to the table view. Now you can click View, and it's going to give you the summary report for this study, but you don't have any information in here yet. So as a point of contact, so myself, David, and Thomas will have this Edit button. So we can click Edit, and this is going to open up the study so you can see the stepper workflow. And so you're going to start our setup we've already done. And now we're going to move to mapping. Let's see, down here, and we'll zoom in to the Dillon area. And you can create your study area using point line polygon or LRS point or LRS line. If possible, we are recommending that you use the LRS tools. I know this is not always going to be a viable option. If you're working, maybe with a railroad or a Walmart parking lot or a new road, it's not going to be on the LRS, and you won't be able to do this type of draw. But this tool, the draw tool, works just like the LRS query pick tool. So if I want, let's say I want to do my study here in Dillon, I'm going to let's grab Main Street. The corresponding number to the selected route segment, and then I'm going to type Z to start digitizing, and then Z to end. And then that gives me my route name, to from measure, and I have PR, meaning the prime. If I want the opposite direction, if I want to automatically copy that, I can click Actions. I can delete that feature. I can flash it. I can zoom to it, but you can also copy the opposite direction to capture that as well. So I'm going to add on. You can have as many segments as you want. So let me grab part of 15 as well. So number 1, then Z, start, and then we'll take it up here, Z to end, and then we'll copy the opposite direction. Okay, once you're satisfied with what your study area looks like, you can move on. Next, click Details, or click the next button to move to the details. And this is, when it comes to the study, this map feature is going to return a VTrans midterms matrix. So it's drilling down on those two VTrans data layers, the district and the statewide. So it shows the categories priority, and it tells you what's going on. So it's kind of doing the work for you. We couldn't decide what looked better, the chart or the heat chart, so we gave you both. Okay, next you go to your documents. And for everyone that thinks they've seen all this before, you have not seen this. This is brand new, and we pushed this new documents user interface out so that we can better crosswalk our documents to the Smart Portal pre-scoping application. So you'll have the option to put in a link, as many links as you want, and click the Add Documents to add and upload a document. Click Upload Files. We're gonna make this button bigger. This is a little bit too small even for me. So I'm gonna click select my study report, and then you'll give it a document type. Click Add, and that will add. I'm going to add a few more here. Can do traffic counts. And I'll do one more. Do a crash report. Call it other documents. You can download to open the document, and if you have the permissions, you can delete it. You can also click on the little stack of pancakes button and drag it to change the order. And the tagging of it, I think we're going to see as we get more and more things put in here, this tagging, labeling it with a document type is going to be able to allow us to query the system. So if you're looking for traffic counts, do things like, hey, I'm looking for traffic counts on Route 15 in the state range. Entering the data this way is going to give us that possibility going forward to find information more quickly as it's put into this system. Okay, so next I want to go to recommendations. And this too is where I think I lose people, because right now, I point out, I'm in my study. It has its own stepper workflow. When I get to number 5, the recommendation, and I say, okay, I don't have anything here, I want to create my recommendation that comes out of the study. It opens up the recommendation stepper workflow. So it's going to have its own setup here. So, and it carries over a lot of the information, but I'll go ahead and put some of this in. So we have from the study, Lynchburg, Buckingham County. You can put in the PDCs, the MPOs, the location type, put corridor. And then this is, I'm going to make this recommendation a roundabout. So I'm going to say long-term, major. Okay, but this is key right here, the recommendation improvement type. So you click this, select improvement, and it's going to let you filter. You're going to describe what you want that recommendation to look like, because it might not just be a roundabout. When I type in roundabout, have all the options, I'm going to select that. You might also, well, you probably also want some safety with that. So part of this recommended improvement, I'm going to put safety and signage, and maybe we need some landscaping as part of that. And once you're satisfied, this is what the recommendation is. Click apply. You can delete anything you want. You can go back and add more, or you can just keep moving along. And we have fields for here to put in what problem does this solve? Is there a safety issue? If there is a study report that this recommendation is coming out of, we found it's helpful to know to record what page number you can refer to get more information. Whether or not it's supported by our localities, has there been a planning study or PE work done, and whether or not any comments, PE work study comments, as well as recommendation description. Okay, so once you have that information in, you can enter your location of that recommendation. So I'm going to go over here where the Buckingham branch is, and put him over here. Digitize my feature. I can have as many as I want. Okay, one more section. Number 2. And start, end. Click the LRS, and that becomes the location of that recommendation for my roundabout. I'm going to get a whole lot here. Again, that feature you drew is drilling down on those layers and returning this VTrans matrix. And then that you can use that information to enter in these fields if you want that to be static, whether or not, yes, there was a VTrans need identified and what year it was. All these layers, a lot of these questions, I think everything, maybe not NEPA, but we have the regional network, we have the COSS data as GIS layers. So you can refer to those if you're looking to keep track of this information. Next are documents. This is just like our study documents I just showed you. However, with the recommended improvements, this is where we have a lot more detail, so that we can crosswalk these document types to all the document types that are listed in the pre-scoping application. So you can upload a file and then give it a document type. You can start typing and say, okay, this is my detailed cost estimate, or just add a couple more. Do a sketch, project sketch, and click add. Okay, so then you can keep adding documents here. Next, you can go to your cost. So if in these studies, these recommendations should have costs associated with them. I do want to point out, and I know if Jason's out there listening, he's going to back this up 100%, but this is planning data. These costs, if you enter them here, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting cost information here. However, it is subject to change once it gets to the pre-scoping application. So they are going to be making more of those cost decisions there. So, but as of, as far as this being planning dollars, planning cost estimates, this is where you would put that information. So if they're right-of-way cost, that's too much for them to get paid. Let's say a little bit too much. Put in some numbers, contingency cost, and gives you a total cost. You want to put in high, low, give it dollar year. And then we have an area for VDOT district staff, the planners and the PIMs to come in here and put in their comments and questions. And this is a good way for the planners to communicate as well with the external business partners. And then also go back and just to go back a step as well as the documents. It's a great way, if you're having problems sharing documents, putting them into pathways for planning, you both have accounts, great way to share documents and communicate through these fields. So next, move to funding. This funding page will give you a summary, and then it gives you all the potential funding programs that your improvement, them all listed out. And so I know in the Salem district, they have a group of planners and PIM that have sat down and looked at their standalone recommendations to select which funding programs they think they are qualified for. So, it could be maybe click on a few of these. So I might think my roundabout qualifies for these. You can put comments in here, maybe needs review. We have a drop down, not funded, funded, unknown. We can put in that information. We also have fields at the bottom to track information about the planning phase, next step, and funding comments. So back to the top, this is very important when you're entering a recommendation from within a study that you click add to study. And I'm getting ready to show you a bug because it should take you back to the recommendations. So now that recommendation for the roundabout is under step 5 for recommendations. You can click on it. You can see that summary information for your recommendation. You can delete it if you have the permission, or you can go back and edit it. Then again, you need to save again to save the entire study. So I added roundabout. Click OK. Happy pencils? Okay, so now that's been updated. I click on my history. I can see there my last comment has been entered. So that's all great. So I just have a little bit more to show you until we get to the very exciting part. Right now, I'm in the studies table view. I can click View Recommendations next to the Create button. So this is just showing our studies. So if I want to see all the recommendations that I have, these are recommendations that not only come from the study, but also the standalone recommendations. And you have a slightly different dashboard. You can adjust how that looks. I don't want to show status. I want to show funding sources, like if that's identified, or estimated costs. So maybe I am in the city of, let's say, Lynchburg. And maybe I have an extra $100,000 that I want to use at the end of the year. If that cost estimate information is in here, you can do this type of filter where I could say, hey, I have $100,000 in the city of Lynchburg, and it should have returned something. Shoot. Let's do another one. 1 million. That's a lot more money to play with anyway. But it would sort through and tell me all the projects that I potentially have that are within this cost estimate. So you can do that way. You can also toggle over to the map view, just like you did for the studies, and look at the recommendations. Here's Regina Starr's Route 50 study in Northern Virginia and Fairfax County. And you can click on those, do the quick click on those, and click View to open that recommendation report. Just to zoom out a little bit more, you can see down in the Salem district, they've been using these tools to manage those standalone recommendations, their project ideas. So you see a lot going on down there. You have the same tools over there. You also have the toggle layers that you can turn on, but this recommendations defaults to recommendations, but I can turn on that one, studies and projects to view those as well. And just note, I know these things look the same, so you just reference the top left-hand corner and know that you're in the recommendations map view. So just one more thing I want to show, and then, well, not one more thing, but so your project ideas. If you just have a project idea and you want to put it in, but you don't have a study, you can go to that recommendation table view or map view and click Create Recommendation. And that's going to take you right to that stepper workflow. And the only difference here, though, is, so if I'm here and I'm Roanoke, Roanoke sidewalk. Yeah, that Roanoke County has their sidewalk project, but they don't want everyone to see it. You know, so they have their point of contact. They have their editors that they can set up. In addition to that, they have a view access for organizations, so they can choose. So your jurisdictions and pathways for planning are your organizations or your VDOT districts or consultants. Those are organizations. So if they just want, let's see. Let's see. Probably should pick Albemarle County. sidewalk project because it's at the top. And then we'll also say VDOT, Culpeper District. So they can restrict that just to those people, the users of Pathways for Planning that are within these two organizations. So everything else would be the same that I just showed you. The mapping, the details, the documents, cost, and funding would all be the same that as a recommendation that was derived from a study. So I'm going to go back. This is the last thing I'm going to show you, but probably the most exciting thing. So if you have when you're ready, you want to go from Pathways for Planning, it's time, you got everything, all your documents, your features drawn for your recommended location, you have everything, all the stars are in line. So I'm going to say this Jaguar Trail improvement project, improvement recommendation. I'm going to click View from the table, and this is going to open, and it's going to give me that summary report for this recommended improvement up there in Northern Virginia. You're going to have a download button, and when you click that button, that's going to bundle all the information from this recommendation, and it takes just a second. Well, I already pulled it up over here, is when you download it, and it's going to give you the option at this time, pre-scoping, because we've crosswalked the fields, the documents, the feature from Pathways for Planning over into the pre-scoping application. So this is another benefit of this, is that you're not going to have to retype this information over and over again. You have it logged here in Pathways for Planning, and now this gives you the ability to bring it over, download it, bring it over into pre-scoping application. So when I click this and I click download, it's going to put an export zip in your download file. I will, though, recommend, though, you go right in if you start using this and give it a name, because it's just going to say export zip. So that's what I would do, and say Jaguar Trail improvements, whatever. Give it a name so you know what it is when you go into the pre-scoping application. So that is way too much of me talking. So does anyone have any questions about the studies module?
I have one for right now. I forget who this is from, but how do you prevent the creation of duplicate studies? For example, if two VDOT staff create the same study independently and each one creates their own POCs or uploads, various parts of the study and relevant documents. In short, who has permission to create the study?
Any of the users that have the ability that have access to the studies module can create a study. They will be the point of contact. They assign other points of contact. They assign editors. So you could have, you could have two people creating the same study or putting in the same study. So you could have duplicates.
Okay. And I just want to be time conscious here. Sarah, do you have enough time if we do polling questions, or should we just go right into your section?
Oh, I think
Why
we
don't
have
we just,
time.
Okay,
I
cool.
mean, well,
I just wanted to check.
whatever works for anyone.
Mhm.
I'm flexible.
All right. And we will do that. Geraldine, if you could give me the polling permissions.
okay, 1 minute. And you're still Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is, recommended improvements can only be entered if they are associated with a study. I'm closing the poll. So the answer is false. Recommended improvements can be entered if even if they are not associated with a study. That would be the recommendation, standalone recommendations function Geraldine went over. Load up the next question. Okay. Only a POC can export recommended improvements for the Smart Scale portal pre-scoping application. Is this true or false? Okay, I'm gonna close the poll. And the answer is false, I believe. I right? I'm not as familiar with the studies model as I am with the module.
It should be true. But
Okay, it is true. There you go. Need to work on my own systems a little bit more. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me load up the next question. And this question is a true or false. Cost information entered into pathways for planning will not be subject to change.
that's for Jason.
I appreciate that, Geraldine.
Well, you let me borrow that slide, so.
It's beautiful. You just, I'm a horrible interior designer. Yours is an improvement.
Okay, I'm gonna close the poll, and the answer is false. You can edit cost information in the pathways for planning application. All right, let's go to the last question. How would you bundle a recommended improvement to bring over to the Smart Portal pre-scoping application? Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And I believe the answer is D. Is that correct, Geraldine? This is new to me as well.
Is what? B. It's A.
It's A. Okay, cool. But that's all of the questions about the studies and recommendations module that we have. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk about the smart scale pre-scoping.
I think I need to bring back the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Geraldine, if you could drive, that would be great.
I'm going to try. Okay.
We see the presentation, so that's a good sign.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's great. Okay. This is where I ended. So
Yep.
Download, click pre-scoping, download. And this is where, okay, for you, Sarah.
All right, thank you. Yes, I'm Sarah Rhodes with VDOT's Infrastructure Investment Division, and I'm just going to give a quick overview of how we get the information that's in P4P into the Smart Portal. First things first, I will say what I'm going to show you all today is conceptual. We are actually still developing this process. We will have more materials out though that will have more specifics. So basically this will give a clean overview and this will be how it looks. However, we might have some details that change as we start to finalize the development of the upload process from P4P. So could be some changes, but we will have more details in early February when we put this process out for test, and then full functionality for the P4P to pre-scoping download upload process will be available. That will be open. I think the date is February 18th, so that will be available soon. I did want to also note pre-scoping training materials. Geraldine referenced the December, oh, if you could back up, thanks, Geraldine. Geraldine referenced the December 2nd training that Jason gave. That webinar was recorded and is available for review on the Smart Scale resources page if you didn't catch it. We also have a bunch of associated materials, including the presentation and what we're calling a rolling FAQ. We will be continually updating our question answers as we continue to develop this process. So all of those materials are available on the Smart Scale resources page. So first things first with the pulling the P4P recommendations into the Smart Portal for application. The P4P recommendations come through the pre-scoping module. So the first thing you'll need to do is log into the Smart Portal, and this is the home page that you land on. You will see the applications you have access to. So as you can see, I have access to all the applications. You may not have that access, and frankly, you may not want access to all the funding applications. But the orange one at the bottom is the pre-scoping application. And if you do not see that on your home page, that means you need to have access. If you are an org admin, you can simply go into user permissions and give yourself access. It is available for you to do so. If you are not an org admin, you will need to reach out to your org admin and have them give you the access. If those two things fail and you still don't have access, please submit an access request through the Smart Portal email and we will get you all set up. So first things first, you'll land on this homepage. Second, next slide, please. You'll need to create a new application. The P4P recommendation will upload into the pre-scoping module. The pre-scoping module is structured for collaborative project development. So it allows for the recommendation that is coming out of P4P to be further refined prior to going into a specific funding program application. So it's another opportunity to get things fully application ready prior to actually putting the project request into a funding program. So you will select a new application using the pre-scoping module. The pre-scoping module is available all the time. It will be available in perpetuity. And so this creating a new application in the pre-scoping module is something that will always be available. However, in this, you may see when intake is open, say intake opens for SmartScale on March 1st, 2022, you will see SmartScale as an option. You will just need to remember for the P4P crosswalk to click the pre-scoping module. Next slide, please. So this is when you're creating a new application, there's various sources from where the application information can come from. There's the cloning, which is use previous application. There's the create new application, which means you're just getting a straight up clean application form. And then finally, we will have the pathways for planning button. It may or may not look like this, but it will be something that's obvious and you know to click to. So you will click on that button to begin the upload process. Next slide. And then it's as simple as uploading a file. I will say that the upload process will not allow anything that is not a zip file, so those won't even be available. And if you upload something that is not a P4P zip file, you will result in many error messages. So I would recommend that you be sure you're uploading the correct file when you do this. Next slide. During the upload process, the Smart Portal, you will get one of these creating your application think bars. That is a good sign. That means the application is just being developed and that the information works. Next slide. And then finally, you will have your fully crosswalked application. You can see the red box that will indicate the source of the application information. The other red box, there you go. That will indicate that the source of the information came from P4P, and it will document which recommendation the information came from. I would note that the P4P to pre-scoping module crosswalk is not all inclusive. There will still be information that needs to be keyed into the pre-scoping application, but the crosswalk does knock out a significant portion of the some of the more onerous inputs, specifically project features and supporting documentation. The crosswalk will allow for much of that information to already be in the application and will take some of the work effort out of that process. So that's pretty much it for how the upload process will come from P4P into the pre-scoping module. I'm open to questions, or actually, you know what I should first do is see if Jason has anything he'd like to add. Okay, so maybe we'll just go into questions for overall, but that's all I had.
Sarah, what was the date again that you said? February? That you
So
were
we'll do initial test. We think initial test will be available February 7th, and the full functionality is scheduled to be available February 18th.
Okay. Okay. No one, Matthias, are there any questions in the chat?
Not that haven't already been answered.
Everyone's exhausted. So, okay. Well, I'm going to put the information here. Again, v.p4p.com. Here's the link as well in the presentation. And we'll make both of these available. Sarah, I'll talk to you if you all have a place in the Smart Portal for these to go to. We can put them into pathways for planning. But if you have questions for us, here are our email addresses. And, you know, we tracked all the questions. I know there are a few that I didn't answer today. I can send out to everybody instructions for the crash data by year. And I think there were a few more. Matthias, were you able to just keep track of all the questions that we have?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get with you and we'll send out a follow-up email. I'm sure everyone looks forward to another email from me. But more information to kind of follow up from this training. So, well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you joining the call. I hope this you found it valuable. You know, please contact me or Sarah if you have any more questions, if you think of anything after today. Okay. That's so.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Geraldine.
Thank you, Sarah.
Appreciate it.
And thank you, Matthias. Great job.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.